How you doing?
Good, how are you?
Doing well. I can't thank you enough for coming on the show today. So tell us a little bit about yourself and why you got into this business.
Okay, so I actually got sober January 7th of 2012. I'm originally from Texas, and for me, I am a person that went to treatment one time, but I felt like someone took the care and concern for my family and talked them through the process. And by doing that, I was able to get to the most appropriate place clinically and where I was in my recovery, being 29. When I got sober, and so now, almost 6 years later,
Wow.
here I am.
Almost 6 years sober.
Yes.
That is amazing. I can't thank you enough for sharing that with us and the listeners today. As many of the listeners know, I'm also a person in recovery, and here at Stages of Recovery, we've been, we do the intensive outpatient with sober living for the aftercare when somebody gets out of treatment. But today what we want to find out about is what's going on with the inpatient, right? What happens at the initial start when someone says, hey, I need some help? Will you walk us through the process of when you get a phone call from somebody struggling? How do you approach that, and how do you get them pointed in the right direction?
Okay, so it really depends. For me, I do a lot of the admission calls myself on the front end, and so if they're calling, if it's a family member that's calling, then learning more about what their loved one is going through, what they're needing, things like that. And then also, if it's the client or the person that's seeking treatment themselves, then I want to know more about them and build a rapport with them as to what they're going through, because then I can share some of my personal experience. I've been on the family side as well as being a person in recovery. So I get pretty vulnerable and honest with them as to what and what helped me, and then help guide them and find out what they need, and we kind of can go from there as to what is either one of my facilities, or if it's something else. Not everyone needs residential treatment.
Right.
Some people need just IOP or sober living or just therapy. So really seeing where people are at so they're not getting placed in things that are not appropriate.
Yeah, so what I'm hearing is that the first thing you're going to do, first things first, right? You establish a personal relationship with the individual and the family that's struggling, which is extremely important because they are so fearful, first off, of the situation that they've got themselves into, and then they have no idea how to pull themselves out of that. So they're calling you, scared out of their minds. I get those phone calls as well, right? And so that's the first thing I always try to do, is just have a very personal conversation with them and assure them that, hey, if you're breathing right now, it's possible to get help, right? If we're talking right now on the phone and you're breathing right now, it's possible to get some help. And so that I also agree with that, just creating a personal relationship with them to start out, getting them comfortable with who you are, and then actually that gives you a chance to find out what exactly they're struggling with, which means you get to plug them into the proper place. So today, I want to talk about a place that's very near and dear to our hearts at Stages of Recovery in Lubbock, Texas. We're fans of West Texas, right? Raiderland, baby. So we're going to talk about the ranch at Dovetree, which is an inpatient residential treatment that has been around for how long? Decades.
So yeah, since the 90s.
Since the 90s, Dovetree has been open. A lot of listeners might be familiar with the ranch at Dovetree. And so I'm going to have Karin talk a little bit about her relationship with the Dovetree, and obviously remember, she is a national outreach person, right? So she's involved with all 14 treatment centers. But today we're going to hone in on the ranch at Dovetree. Tell us about the ranch.
So the ranch is really special, and it's actually part of the reason that I, when I was approached to take a job at Summit BHC, at the facility I worked at before, we did a lot of referring to Dovetree. They have a really special program for the emerging young adult. They have also an adult program, and what I love is they separate the two, because for the young adult who has started using at 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, there's a whole other bit of skill sets that they have not addressed along with the substance use, because their substance use has taken their ability to not feel and communicate and things of that nature. So we're really known for this really amazing, strong emerging young adult program. They say 18 to 25, but I can tell you from personal experience, I was 29 and probably belonged in the young adult program, and so they don't cap it at 25. It really, again, is based on the needs, what are they going through, and what's most appropriate. And then we have the adult program, so the collegiate emerging young adult program is run and has groups that are separate from the adult programs.
Right. So what I'm hearing is that the first thing you're going to do is you're going to figure out where this individual is at, because it's extremely important to meet them where they're at. Because if you misplace them, that can be dire to their situation and to their actual recovery in the long run. And so that's what I'm hearing. Dovetree offers individualized care, and they make sure that they place the person in the proper place, whether it's is it safe to say collegiate, or is it?
I like it more the emerging young adult, because not
Okay.
everyone wants to, it used to be the term, the collegiate,
Yeah.
age group, but the reality of it is that at 27, 28, 29, we know just evidence-wise that when people start using, that's when they've kind of emotionally stunted where they're at.
Yes.
So with that, you're sometimes dealing with someone that's 29 but started using at 14.
Right.
And
Yeah.
so you're really dealing with someone that's emotionally
Right.
14.
Yeah, so you make sure they get to the emerging young adult program or the adult program, which would be, you would safely say 30 and up, or depending on their situation, of course.
Yeah.
But that's typically the age range you would see.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right, so they have options for any type of age group at the ranch at Dovetree in Lubbock, Texas. If somebody did want to call and get some more information about this program, what number would they call?
So they could call 888-748-6695, and that's my admissions direct line. And so, like I said, with that, they, can learn about Dovetree, and sometimes Dovetree is not the appropriate program, and sometimes it is, because really Dovetree was designed to have some sort of aftercare.
Right.
So, I know we work really in conjunction with y'all a lot. We also have Treehouse and Tree Haven, which are our extended care
Yes.
at Dovetree. So, when they designed that program, they knew they were dealing with emerging young adults, and that, depending on the evidence, right, it's 30 days, it's been 42 days, whatever the evidence shows of what a residential should be, that it needs to be continued with something.
Right.
So that residential piece is not the be-all, end-all, but it's the beginning and the start to then to continue on.
To that long-term care, and it's so important. A lot of places, they only offer a 30-day solution, which is fine for a lot of people. I know a lot of people that have gone through a 30-day situation, went back home and have done fine. I've also seen the opposite, right? And so even at stage of recovery, we believe in that long-term care. Someone can come to our sober living communities and live with us as long as they need to, while they're in school or whether they're working. It doesn't matter. Whatever their goals may be, they can stay with us until they're done achieving those goals and are comfortable and ready enough to move out. If somebody stayed in Dovetree for the perfect amount of time, longest amount of time you could stay, how long is that?
So for the residential piece, they can do up to 90 days if someone needed 90 days of residential. Typically, it's about 30 to 42 days for the collegiate age, but then they're going to have some sort of aftercare already designed, already scheduled, and they're going to go door to door.
Right.
We've seen the best results for where there's not a hiccup of I'm going to go home, I'm going to go to a wedding, I'm going to go do whatever, and just they go directly from the facility to that then aftercare.
Yes.
If they were to stay for our full continuum, then the next step is our either Treehouse or Tree Haven, which is 3 months, but they can stay longer than that.
Yeah.
So we have, the typical length of stay is 6 to 9 months in Treehouse or Tree Haven after.
Yeah.
So it can really be a long-term solution. And then sometimes, like I said, they've even stepped down from Treehouse, Tree Haven to y'all or back somewhere closer to their home, wherever they're at. And then if they, can begin their lives from there. So, but the typical, I would say, if you were to just begin the full continuum, it would be 4 months, but 4 months to 9 months is really what we see a lot.
Right.
And then they can begin stepping down.
That's absolutely amazing. I love that it's individualized and that you take the care and the consideration to say, okay, is this person actually ready to go to the Treehouse or the Tree Haven, which is for women? Actually, let's explain that a little bit. So the Treehouse is Dovetree's men's aftercare, and Tree Haven is Dovetree's women's aftercare. Can you explain a little bit about what happens if someone transitions to the Treehouse or Tree Haven?
Absolutely. So what they do is they actually start in a PHP level of care, which for, I guess, layman terms would be that they go 3 hours twice a day. And then if they move into IOP, so then they would still then do 3 hours a day. So with that, they also, that's their groups, but then they have individual therapy and they have adventure therapy. What's really neat about Treehouse and Tree Haven is they've equipped, they do whitewater rafting, they've gone skiing, they go hiking, we've taken them to Big Bend, and all of that's included in the cost of Treehouse Tree Haven. So the food, there's live-in staff, a lot of them, are either in recovery, have a background in work in this field, and so they're getting a whole lot of support. And when they first come in, they're not leaving without staff, and it's not based on time. as to when they're going to transfer into a phase. Is it's really about what they're doing. So they're putting their actions and disciplines to work.
That's amazing. That's such a long time, and I can't tell you how important it is to get them on outings like that, because what it does is it strengthens their ability to communicate with other people. Because when I was a young person in recovery and I first got sober, I didn't know how to communicate with people. I didn't know how to build relationships or connect with people on a real level. And so those types of outings that Dovetree does, you mentioned the skiing and the whitewater rafting, it's so important for these young adults to actually be able to get with one another and be able to communicate on a different basis. It also helps with them when they're learning how to deal with conflict and their communication skills in general when it comes to that. And so that's very important to have some type of aftercare solution for the inpatient residential treatment, which Dovetree does have that. And sometimes that's us at Stages of Recovery, sometimes it's Treehouse or Tree Haven. Once again, this is individualized care. And so the next thing that I would like to talk about, so the listeners can actually have an idea of what it's like in the day in the life of Dovetree. So someone called you, they were panicking, they were fearful. You calmed them down, right? And the family said, okay, we're going to do this. We're going to get this person into treatment. And then they get there. What's the first thing they do? Don't they go to detox first? Is that?
Yeah, well, depending on what they use and things like that. So they may start out in detox. Sometimes we have clients that go directly into the residential care. But so they would detox, make sure that they're stable and that they can start to participate in the groups. There's a female house, there's a male house, and what's neat is and then they have a collegiate age male house. So that those are separate. And they begin their journey in recovery, but they start to learn about themselves. They're going to go to groups that not only are just I would say the core recovery groups of learning what your disease is and all of those pieces, but we do wellness every day. So every morning they start out in the gym.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we have a dietitian and a wellness director that are there, and they're there every day. So they work with the clients, they help them and educate them on why they eat certain foods, why you work out. They do like dance-offs. They do volleyball.
Wow, that's amazing.
Things. So they do different things that was not just working out in the gym. Also, there is a gym, but they try to do yoga. So they introduce people to all of these different pieces of what they can do at home.
Yes.
So we want them to be able to take what they've learned and utilize it in their daily life.
The tools, right? You're essentially giving them tools to use when they leave, because it's great that they came to treatment, but like you said, that's the beginning of the battle. That's the very beginning of the battle. And what they're about to embark on is a very long journey that's tough. Me and you know that personally. The co-host of the show, Stephen Medley, knows that personally. And so once again, we appreciate what you guys do so much out there at the ranch at Dovetree. We've been working very closely with Dovetree for a decade. And they've just been wonderful with what they do. Every family that I ever hear talk about their son or their daughter went through Dovetree, their husband or their wife, it doesn't matter. The reports have always been amazing. And I can't thank you enough for what you're doing out there. The next piece that I'd like to talk about, because now we know kind of what the individuals are doing, right? The individuals are going there, they're possibly detoxing if they need to, and then they begin going to their groups and their individual sessions, and they're going to these outings, and they're discovering this new identity, right? But we're going to talk about something very important, because if you get somebody healthy and they go back into an unhealthy system, I'm not saying it will happen, but the likelihood of them continuing in recovery if they're put back in an unhealthy system is less likely, far less likely. And so what do you do for the families to ensure that they're communicating with their loved one properly and that they're actually being supportive and not enabling? Can you speak on that a little bit?
Yes, so we actually have an intensive family, I would say it's 4 days, so they're meeting with the individual therapist of their loved one that's there. They're also having, if they need sessions together, then they have some family sessions together. They're developing the discharge plan from what the client or loved one has talked about, and what the therapist and the clinical team, because they staff the clients and really develop what the best plan might be. And then they talk to the families about it, so that it's not the loved one calling and saying, hey, this is what I'm going to do, or the therapist calling, making decisions so they can make these decisions together. So there's a buy-in to it, because
gotta have some skin in the game, right?
I was like, with anything, if I have a diet, I have to have some buy-in to this diet, or I'm not keeping it.
Right.
So they do a lot of intensive work with groups, with the families that are separate without their loved one, and then their loved one comes in and does family work with them during that time. And then we also encourage them to do Al-Anon. We encourage them to find a parents meeting, things in their hometown, and we can help them find those things. And
could you speak a little bit about Al-Anon? What is that?
So Al-Anon, which I am a member of as well. It really is about being powerless over your loved one. Because our hope is that, whether it's, Dovetree or any of our other facilities, is that no matter if the loved one gets well or not, we hope that they do with the tools they're provided,
right,
but that the family can get well.
Right.
So that both are moving in an upwards direction so we don't want to leave the family where they left their loved one when they dropped off at treatment.
Right.
And we don't want to leave, we want the loved one to continue to use their tools. So the goal is for them to be moving forward and up
together. Right. And I think that's great because Al is essentially it's a 12-step group for the family members that are not struggling with addiction. They're struggling with a loved one that is addicted. And so one of the things that I can speak on from personal experience is that my mother and my father are polar opposites. It's so funny. They've been married 35 years, okay? But my mother was the enabler, okay, because of the amount of fear she had for her children. And my dad was on the other end. He is a person in recovery, and he kind of knew what was going on. He was like, look, this is a little bit beyond us now. We need to get into a safe place because it's a little bit beyond the parental, waving their finger at you, don't do this, you'll get in trouble thing. I was past that, right? And so I want all the family members that are listening, if there is a mom or a dad that's listening right now to what Karin has had to say about this intensive family program, it's going to help you learn how to properly communicate with your loved one who is suffering. They have all types of resources for the individuals and the families as well, so that the family system can get better as a whole. And if you're out there listening, and maybe you've dealt with your loved one in this situation before, you know how difficult it is to speak with them and bring up the fact that maybe their drinking has become a little bit of a problem. I mean, as soon as they mention that, they're met with hesitation, they're met with hostility, and obviously the tension builds. And so we're here to tell you that you don't have to have those conversations alone. You can have them with Karin, you can have them with me. You can call Stages of Recovery anytime at 806-412-4721. We are also a local resource in Lubbock. We're more of an aftercare, right? So you would be dealing with a place like Dovetree first, and then you would come to us for a place for aftercare services and whatnot. But now that we know a whole lot about Dovetree, I would like to hear about Summit, because Summit is very special. Summit Behavioral Healthcare owns 14 treatment centers, and I want to talk a little bit about what are their belief systems, like how did they come about owning all these treatment centers? Why are they so passionate about helping others? Can you tell us a little bit about Summit Behavioral Healthcare?
Yes. So for Summit BHC as a whole, they really wanted to provide good quality treatment that was ethical and affordable. Mm-hmm. Because as we know, the price tag of a lot of treatment is expensive, and so
yes,
we wanted to provide master's level therapists, then people to be able to get trauma therapy, people to be able to get some stabilized eating disorder help if that's like a co-occurring piece in theirs, or self-injury. So they weren't limited with, okay, I only have limited resources, so this is all I can get out of the treatment that I'm going to go to. So their mission was they wanted to provide good quality treatment at an affordable rate.
For anybody and everybody, that's so important. If you call Summit Behavioral Healthcare, which, go ahead and tell them what the number is real quick again.
It's 888-748-6695.
That is so amazing. You can call them, and they're going to find out where you actually need to go. They have 14 different locations. Guys, I can't express to you how valuable this resource is. They have 14 different facilities across the nation. If you need some help, Summit Behavioral Healthcare, Karin Swenson will find that help. I promise you that. If you call her, you have to call her, though. You cannot hesitate. You got to call right now if something's going on, and they will find a solution for you and your family. They do individualized care. They provide some of the best family services that I've ever been involved with personally. I actually did the ranch's IOP, Dovtree's IOP, 8 years ago. And my family was also involved with that. It was a wonderful time. It was perfect for my early recovery. I had just gotten out of a 30-day treatment center, very nervous, right? I came up to Lubbock, Texas. I was living in Stages of Recovery in the door, and I was getting the clinical services from the ranch in Dovetree, and they really did provide me and my family with exactly what we needed at that point in time in our life. How long has Summit been around?
So it has been around for a little over 3.5 years. I don't want to misspeak, but about 3.5 years. And they started with with just a few facilities. And one of the coolest pieces about Summit BHC is that we've had startups that we've created ourselves, and then they've actually been able to acquire, which like Dovetree is one that we actually acquired, facilities that were already doing really, really strong quality work. And they have their own clinical director and CEO at every facility, so they get to kind of have some autonomy with the backing of a group of facilities, a network of facilities,
Right.
and really, it's the best of both worlds, for us and for people that, because they really have specialized niches. Every single one of my facilities, I can't stress enough, it's not 14 facilities that do the same thing and are just in different cities. They actually have very, specific things that they can do along. They're all primary substance, so substance has to be, primary, but they can do co-occurring with self-injury.
What about the eating disorder? You mentioned the eating disorders. There's a lot of people out there that feel that if they're suffering from something like that, they don't need treatment. However, I strongly disagree with that logic. I think that if you have an eating disorder, that's just as bad, if not worse, than a substance abuse disorder. But some of them are very fearful about calling in because they don't think that's the right fit for them. Do you have solutions for those that are struggling with a possible eating disorder?
So if it's not a stabilized eating disorder, what we would typically do is I have sources all across the country that I can help be the resource in finding the right facility for you. But if it is if it's stabilized and it's something that tends to come out maybe after you get sober, if you've ever been trying this before and it's like, hey, I start binging and purging because now I'm sober and there's another piece to my co-occurring addiction. Then we can. But Dovetree is actually one that can, because with the dietitian, she can actually sit down and work with them, and then we can get them aftercare when they're leaving, set up with an eating disorder specialist and things so they can continue that through their journey while they're sober and do that. So it really depends. We don't have any straight specific eating disorder facilities or ones that can take non-stabilized,
but you can still work with those. Yeah, you can still work with those that are struggling, or you're going to find them the right place, and that's one of the things that I think is so important. One of the reasons why we wanted to come to the Texas Association of Addiction Professionals Conference, people call it TAP, just so the listeners know, one of the most important things we do here at a conference like this is network. Because I know, and Karin knows, that we might not have the proper facility for people that call us. But what we will do, and we guarantee this, I promise you this, is we will find the one that is correct for you and is correct for you and your family. Because it's not just about getting them into our program, it's about getting them into a program that's right for them and right for their family. And Summit Behavioral Healthcare does it very well. Like I said, they have many different options that when you call in, they're going to establish a relationship with the individual and the family. They're going to figure out exactly what is going on, and then they're going to reach out to one of their 14 different facilities across the country and ensure that the proper level of care is provided. And once again, I can't thank you enough for doing this. Go ahead and let the listeners know one more time what that number is.
It's 888-748-6695.
You can call, and for those that don't like calling in, what's the website if they want to do some research on that?
So if you want to do some research, then it would be www.summitbhc, so B as in boy, H as in hat, C as in cat.com, so summitbhc.com, and that actually pulls up all 14 facilities. We have a lot of in-network options, out-of-network options, longer-term care. So, like I said, you can really establish what is needed and then what works financially and things like that.
So I encourage all the listeners out here to get on the website. You can poke around, find the different treatment center that you're interested in, and make sure that you can customize the treatment options for you and your loved one. And always, make sure you call in and ask any questions. Please don't hesitate. Don't allow the fear to control your life anymore, and make sure that you allow someone else into your life to provide that type of help for you. Once again, this is Recovery Live. My name is Stephen Odell. I'm with Stages of Recovery in Lubbock, Texas. You can contact us at 806-412-4721, or you can check us out at www.stagesofrecovery.net. Don't go to .com. It'll take you somewhere different. Stagesofrecovery.net. This was Karin Swenson live from the TAP conference down here in San Antonio, and I cannot thank you enough for coming on this show and doing what you do and providing the services that you provide. There's so many people that are suffering, and one of the things that we try to do with this show is just help break the stigma of addiction in general, because there's such a negative view on those that are suffering from this disease. And what Summit Behavioral Healthcare is doing is helping break that stigma across the country. So I cannot thank you enough for doing that. Hey, Lauren, how are you?